Hey, babies. Welcome, everybody. This is the Brunch and BCN podcast, which is an offshoot of the Club with Lucas. But it's not just me, y'all. It's not just me. Because my sister from another mister, Tawanda Vaughns, is right here sitting next to me. Lady Towy, what's up? What's up? How are you, gorgeous? We are here to bring it real. What are we doing here, girl? What are we doing here? What are we celebrating?
Everything.
Oh, well, we're celebrating everything that's good here in our beautiful city of Barcelona. That is one of the beautiful things here. Now, in fact, we're doing a little bit of an angle on things because what we're here to do with the Brunch and BCN podcast, and yes, we're serving up all kind of manner of croissant. We're serving up a little bit of champagne. We're going to do a little bubbly as well. However, I hadn't taken the glasses out. Maybe we can get those in just a second. But the whole idea of the Brunch and BCN podcast is that we want to be inviting people that are not only popping off and doing stuff here, we want to be sharing a little bit of breaking the bread with them as well and talking about what's going on and how we are seeing our city. Let me ask you something right off the bat, Lady T. Well, firstly, what did you do last night? Let me ask you what you did last night, getting all up in that trouble.
Well, no. I was not in these streets last night. I was actually at home on my sofa. You know, my days are pretty busy.
Yep.
So I chilled. I can't say the same for tonight.
What are you planning tonight, love?
Well, after this show, I would be at the beach dancing for a good 2 hours. And then I have a dance performance to go to at the Coliseum. I forget the name of the performance. And then after that, I may have some cocktails. So I'll be out in the streets tonight.
Okay, wait a minute. So I want to, as we get later on into this, I want to know who this dance performance at the Coliseum is, because that's what we want to be telling the good people in the podcast is what's going on now. Things that are popping off up in here. Now, we're going to, like, we're every time that we do this, right now it's going to be starting monthly. The Brunch and BCN podcast. We're actually also going to be joined by the delectable Aaron Rockman Santos, who's going to be joining us. He is actually the last winner of the Tulip International Art Contest. The lovely folks of Tulip have actually moved base from here and set up another one in Hungary, so power to the people. But he's also shortlisted for another prize list that's going on in an art fair in London. So he's going to be talking to us about that. But also, this man, I love, he makes art stuff with stuff. That's how he describes some stuff. Now, everything that we're going to be doing here is always intimating something that's about art and the arts and entertainment here when we get together to break bread. Now, I'm also looking at three deliciousness. I want to give a mad shout out to our Italian gays over at Cross, otherwise known as Cross for Croissant, which is over on Diputación and the corner of Brook. And this, guys, yes or no?
It's
too much, honestly. And if
decadent.
you ever need, you know what? I'm going to hit these brothers up for new sponsorship, because if you ever need just a massive array of them and different manners of croissants, and none of them are made with pig lard. That's one of their main things here. This is something that I think we should talk about as a brunch talk right now. I did not know, and because of certain roots that I have, I did not know that when I moved here, girl, that most of the pasteles, as they call them here, the pastries, are made with pig lard.
I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. It's fun. And so what ended up happening is that I would be buying these, and I would this stuff on the top of the roof. You know how the manteiga would stay. Manteiga, for our international audience, is pig lard. Mm-hmm. And they, it's from the Civil War time here, from the 30s, 40s, post that 50s, where it was so expensive to have butter in the time of the Franco regime right after it. So they had to use pig lard. They resorted to using pig lard. Mm. Although right over the border, they had it in France. So I'm just I bet they had it in Girona. I bet they used a lot of butter in Girona. But things were different here in Barcelona, which, okay, let's get back to that, because we're really lucky to live here, actually. Where do we hail from? Where are we coming from? Where did we move here from?
Well, I'm coming from New York. Brooklyn, to be exact. The best borough on the planet. I'm sorry. But I've been here for 3 years. 3.5 years.
Really?
3.5 years.
Okay, folks. Sometimes I feel like Lady T has more She knows more about the city than I do, and I've been here for this summer will be 15 years, so 14 and a half. Yeah,
Why did I think you were like 6 or 7? Like, okay.
We're doing cheers to 15 and 3.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Wow.
cheers.
Cheers.
All right, folks. So, again, welcome to the Brunch and BCN podcast. We are filming live and shooting out of the RCE studios right here in beautiful downtown Barcelona, and it's a beautiful sunny day on Saturday. It's also 11:11, so make a good wish. You know who you are. You are very loved. Now, let's see. Oh, and Mr. Santos Boyd Rockman is just 2 blocks away. Let's get to some of the themes that we were talking about, because you sent me some badass.
Oh, I want to get on to those.
You sent me some badass stuff, and we're going to talk about that because our theme for today is Barcelona now and in the future. Now,
statistics have just come out this week.
last week, and this is not just necessarily a Barcelona thing, because I think this affects everybody. Lady T, you correct me if I'm wrong, because I often am. But apparently, according to a very long European study that's gone on, the current generation, otherwise known as Gen Z, for our American audience, are supposedly the least intelligent, I'm going to say dumbest, generation in modern recent history.
But least intelligent, meaning...
in regards to the realities of life, in home economics, in history, in understanding stuff about society, music,
so it's not
cinema,
academia,
literature,
it's
art. It's
school of life, sort of.
School of life,
Yeah.
but also just stuff that deals with the arts in general, or history, or politics, or the cinema, literature. And I asked, because I'm an educator, and I tutor in Cambridge English, I tutor in history, and I deal with mostly, 18 to 99-year-olds. But a lot of them are uni and batch and high school students, college students for my UK audience. And I asked all of them this week, because I freaked out about them. And maybe one or two in each session of little groups that I have would say that they go down rabbit holes to discover directors or new music or who's this producer and what other stuff to do.
Right.
Like they have no curiosity about it.
Now, that's unfortunate, because that's all I did, and I'm sure you as well.
Tell me, go.
In our youth. And it was all about
Did you say youths?
my youth. In our youth. I was always trying to discover something, and we talk about music all the time. We talk
did not
about,
have the internet like that as well. We had it.
We didn't.
We went to search
didn't.
for this. We went to the library. We went into books. I would go
Remember
to Walden
the library
Books.
with the what is that even called?
Which one?
Oh my God! In the
The Brooklyn
library, that
Library?
machine, and you
Oh,
had
the
to scroll.
microfiche.
Is that what it was?
Microfiche and
That's what it's
microfilm.
called.
Yep, microfiche and microfilm. Yes, and we had to use. Now, this, of course, we are children of the 90s, new adults of the millennium. And so we did necessitate, I necessitated, because I worked in journalism as well in high school and university, I necessitated, obviously, the access to the internet. But there was a lot of research we did in the libraries. This is no joke. No, doesn't happen anymore. There is no research happening in the libraries.
Well, now the
In
library-
uni, yes. In uni,
Yeah.
yes. There are a lot of
'Cause they have
university
to.
students that do it. But
Now the libraries have to figure out other ways of, I guess, getting people in. I know the library in Brooklyn, they have shows there and events.
the Brooklyn
Just
Public Library
the Brooklyn
is...
Public Library,
Okay.
Grand Army Plaza.
And so I also need to say that voted this year, 2023, excuse me, it was at the end of 2023, but it was voted the best modern library, I want to say biblioteca,
Which is in Spanish, folks.
library in the world was voted in Barcelona.
The one that was
Gabriel Garcia Marquez
yes, I'm dying to
Library.
go there.
It is beautiful.
I'm dying to go there.
I just found Bret Easton Ellis's new book there in English. I finished it. It's called The Shards. It's being made into a miniseries, I believe, for HBO Max by
Really?
Luca Guadagnino, who did a bigger splash. If you don't know who Luca Guadagnino is,
Who is
folks,
that?
look him up. I believe he's also the director of Call Me By Your Name. We won't talk about Arm and Hammer.
Yeah, that's a whole other discussion.
And that's on HBO Max, folks, if you haven't seen that. But Gen Z, being the least intelligent generation in modern history, freaks me out mostly for my city because very likely, my roots are here now. Okay, they're always going to be here.
This
and
is
New
home
York
for
City,
me also.
Yeah, New York City and Barcelona is home. I will always have my links, but this is where I've established. And I give a shout out to my twin brother for moving here first. But, and I told my university students, tell me what you think about this, Lady T. You bitches are going to be paying for my pension. So I need you to be with the fire under your bum and ready to work and hustle. And what does that mean? And understanding the concept of that, because this is really important stuff. The average Catalan, really quickly, one more quick statistic, because I love statistics. The average, let me put that on. The average Catalan or Spanish family has modern, like new family, has 0 to 1 kids. Okay? This does not co-opt a big population increase for the future. We'll talk about who does make babies, because it's Latinos and Muslims.
Yeah.
And then we go into the whole rant that people have here about immigration. So, but anyway.
We're everywhere.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Everywhere.
Thoughts about the new generation, please.
Well, firstly, I will not rely on them to take care of me. I can just see it. Towy needs to figure out how to take care of herself when she's 80 or with my community, So I know with my friends, we always talk about, okay, what are we going to do when we're much older? We were still socialized in our 70s and 80s, but okay, should we think about communal living, not living in the same house, but in the same area? Because I cannot rely on these kids.
Okay.
And I think and I don't want to complain about them because I also think they have nice secrets that I shall adapt, in which I should adapt to. For instance, the lack of drive, the lack of the idea of you have to bust your butt to get what you want in life. I don't really see it anymore. And I know I'm generalizing here. I will say that one thing I do appreciate is, there seems to always be a hustle, a way to make money. So they're creative in figuring out ways to make money. Influencers, quote unquote, which I hate that word. How is that a real job? But okay.
What do you mean?
So I appreciate, all right, they're not going the normal, what I would say normal way of making money, but kudos. If you're not going to be a go-getter in the corporate world or whatever, then figure it out.
And I guess we don't need to. Maybe they feel they don't need to.
I don't think they feel they need to, and I was confronted with this because when we were all starting out in school, out of school, first jobs, getting our foot into the door, I'm talking about staying up to 3 a.m. to get something, just for a director to look at me. I would do anything. I was hungry. People aren't so hungry.
Okay, and I just have to mention, while Lady T was talking about that, we are also being joined by award-winning artist Aaron. I'm just going to go Aaron Rockman. I like that way that sounds, boy. It's not just Rockman. Sir, thank you for joining us here on the Brunch and BCN podcast. Could we offer you a little bit of a bite of something? We've had a nibble here, but it was just taken off. That's integral, sir. And I will also, I actually meant to give you some water, sir. But welcome to the Brunch and BCN podcast. Now, we are joined, but I would like for you to also pontificate on some of the things that we're talking about today, because
That's what we do here is pontificate.
listen, there was a study that actually came out last week that it gives evidence, it was a years-long study, that Gen Z is the least intelligent and the dumbest generation in modern times, of modern history.
That's wow! What a statement.
What are your thoughts on that?
I first of all, how do we classify like what's intelligence, right?
Okay, okay, fair enough.
That's I think we need to go there because what I've been confronted with the younger generations is that directly even it's like, well, why did you need to go to school? I finished my master's during COVID, and at the moment it's kind of useless to me with my new career track, where I am in the world and with my life. And I went to a very good school, and I'm still paying it off.
Yep.
And I consider myself to be a highly educated, highly intelligent person. But there is lived experience, and that has never been. It still continues not to be looked at as with the same regard as the classic education.
It should be.
My husband doesn't. He has dipped into formal education here and there, but does not have degrees like I do, but has a full-fledged career and is considered a world expert in his field. Because he's put in the work, he's made the contacts, he's put in his own work and done it, done his own research, which is a phrase I hate to say these days.
The hustle.
It's the hustle. He has hustled, absolutely.
And his beautiful man also is, yes, you should see them together. It's sickening how pretty the two of them are.
Am I going to be jealous?
Yes,
Am I going to be
we
jealous?
We're all jealous. He knows, I think. He's adorable. But also, the thing is, his beautiful husband also comes from Australia, where there is a bit of a mentality of a hustle over there, because they're tirado more than... Now, does that then go back, especially since we're focusing on our city, our beautiful city, adopted home, to parents that don't make their kids realize the reality is that in 2,000 years, up into the 70s, we created 4 billion people. And from the 70s to now, we've doubled that in 50 years. What took 2,000 has been 50 now. We've done in 50. Is it the fault exclusively of the parents? I mean, what would Jesus say?
I don't think it's a fault of the parents per se. I think my husband and I have this joke about when we hear that Billy Joel song, "We Didn't Start the Fire." Well, you guys, that generation poured a lot of gasoline on it. Especially in America. When I did my master's, it was almost out of reach, even for my salary. For the younger generations, it is so far out of reach. The projections are that they're going to be one of the least home-ownered classes in the world, frankly. I mean, so who are we to say that they're less intelligent because of the standards we put on them? Who are we to say they're less successful because of the standards society has put on them from the generations before them?
Fair enough.
And while I'm not a fan of the whole influencer thing, it's a hustle. I don't know if it's a job either.
Yeah, but you can even do that in a smart way too,
100%.
So it's like, okay, I can be an influencer for the rest of my life, but the money I made here, I can reinvest and do. So I appreciate that they are thinking, I would say, out of the box, because let's face it, not everyone can go to university for many reasons, and I am firmly against graduating from university at 21, $100,000 in debt. No. So if you're someone who said, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I mean, I was fortunate to go to FIT and didn't have this huge, but you have to think, okay, if I'm not going to go to school, so what do I need to do to keep it going? So I appreciate the creative thinking. And you're right. I mean, I look at the just rental costs. It's ridiculous. Everyone is in a roommate situation, not because they love being with people. It's because they have to. And that says a lot. And homeowner, I mean, are we the last generation to just... I guess...
I've never felt that burden. I'm going to be really honest. I grew up with, my parents owned homes. Everybody's owned. Half my family works in real estate, actually. Literally, actually. I thought of that. But all I ever saw the house was, especially with my auntie's $3 million nightmare in Long Island. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, I love you, Aunt Laura. It was not what I wanted. I said, I don't want the burden. You don't have the burden of property, Pats, to quote Jennifer Saunders and AbFab. And I never wanted that. And now I'm seeing, everyone in my ilk is mostly between 30 and 50 in that realm. And yeah, and those who have it, it's a beautiful gift that they definitely have, and it supplies money, especially in essence when you have it, you can make money off of it. I just know. I know eventually I'm going to want that, but I never felt that burden to have it. And these kids, what's interesting is that here in Barcelona, the average age to leave your house is just below 31. So the majority, nearly 2/3 of the society here in Barcelona do not leave their house until they're past 30. And so when I'm speaking to them, a lot of them say, well, I can't leave my house until I have a degree and a job and I can buy my own home. And I said, wait. Slow your roll, firstly. And these are uni students, all right? And I said, you're not going to own a home. You're so silly.
You're like, you would never own anything. It's over.
You're so cute. Oh, my God. You're never going to own a home. What are you talking about? Then I go slap that shit out of him. No, I'm kidding. But am I kidding? I don't know. But it feels true. And I said, firstly, why don't you think about understanding what independence really means when we're in a certain, region of that world, and you move yourself from your family, and you live with 2 or 3 or 4 other people in a flat. Everybody pays 200 or 300, but it's a way to get a leg up and understand how to do that. I'm not kidding. I gave university students homework this week to go make sure they know how to use the dishwasher and the washing machine.
Fantastic.
Because they don't know how to do it, and they're in their 20s. And it's scary. And so when we talk about our beloved city, and when we push this out, especially over February, this podcast, I really want parents to start, loving their kids unconditionally by also remembering that tough love is also love. And maybe you need to, you need to prod these little bitches more. Okay. Now, that goes back to another thing, because then we also have so many of those people who actually do turn out the jams. For example, you were talking about buskers in the city, the people that make so much music here. And that was one of the points that you wanted to point out about our beautiful Brunch BCN podcast. Eat up, children. There's rewards in heaven. Would you like some of the butter one, love? I've stolen it. I've just taken off one part of the side. Just one part of the side. But one of the things that you sent, Towy, is that we have so much of the live music on the street. Now, we have it so much as well. We're going to get to that as well, because there are 3 places that we really want to talk about. And I was at one of them last night, and I cannot tell you how much I cried last night. Someone put Baby in the corner. And it was real, man. It was real. It was beautiful. Shout out to Lisa Rudy and Giovanni Gazzani, and shout out to Giovanni Gazzani, because not only is he supplying the music that helps intro this podcast, but also another podcast that I'm filming afterwards. And so I want to give a mad shout out to our BCN-based but Italian-born Giovanni Gazzani. But going back to this, the music on the street, because you talked about this. Please talk about that here in the city.
Well, they're lovely. Of course, you will have some musicians you walk past and you're thinking, maybe you should not do that. Find a real job. But
you're wrong.
That's an exception. I love when I am walking.
Carolina just came out of you. Sorry. That's too true for you. Jingo.
Like, for me, a nice Saturday is when I'm walking, usually from the beach, from dancing. And they have these amazing musicians who also play in the clubs. And they're out on the beach, full bands, very diverse. And it's fantastic. And I always think, okay, life in New York, we also have street musicians.
Of course.
But usually you're in the metro and you're running and you're like, amazing. Okay, I got to catch the train, knock the old lady out, whatever. But here I'm just walking. I can sit on the sand listening to the amazing musicians and dancing. People dance here, which I have a thing. For me, it's if you go to a concert or a live show and the music is upbeat, why are you not dancing? What is your problem? Why are you taking up space? You know, so I get real aggressive about that. So I love it. People just get up and dance, whether it's swing and jazz or blues or rock. Oh, I love my rock. You know, lots of South American music here. I'm in my own private heaven here. You know, and I think the setup of this city allows me to actually feel as if I'm at a show in which I'm paying for. And, you know, and I always give. And the artists here, they're smart because they know people aren't carrying around cash anymore. So they're like, they have their sign for the bism. Yeah. And, you know, I'm like, now that's what I'm talking about with this generation. They, younger generation, you're thinking, oh, these fools don't carry money. We're going to bism. So creative thinking. So I love it.
Okay.
You know, so it's one of my favorite things. It's my weekend. And I feel like I've gone to, like, if you ask, Towy, what did you do? Oh, I went to see 3 concerts. You know, for me, that's amazing.
One of the places that we wanted to talk about was called the Velvet Room. And we haven't been there, but it's a champagne jazz room. That's what it's called. And henceforth, a little bit of don't look at it. Don't look at it. And yesterday, they had the beautiful sounds of Giovanna Gazzani on baby grand piano and Lisa Rudy, who is English with a little bit of Portuguese, she told me. She looks very Portuguese, actually. And they played my songbook. They were just playing my songbook. Like, they don't know that they were playing my jazz songbooks, the standards that I love, most of them coming, a lot of them from the Coles and the Sinatras of the time, the Martins. I sat in a corner and cried like a baby. And I saw, and people were like looking at me, and I'm trying like, when you see a decent-looking grown-ass man crying, you kind of notice that. And I was right by the stage because that's where they sat me. So, the power of Christ compelled. The Velvet Room, BCN. And one of the things that Towy spit over this week was like, a place where I can finally dress up and go out. Because we do live in a beach town. And sometimes flip-flops and socks are not just a line from an Outkast song. And as someone, okay, let's ask another. Since we're talking about art and design and you work in fashion, what are my beautiful people's opinions on flip-flops and socks that are just everywhere now? It's just rife on this. Have you noticed the kids with flip-flops and socks?
With the slides? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a popular thing because a lot of athletes do it. A lot of basketball stars have been doing it for, I feel like, a decade now at least. I think the footballers here have been doing it too. Like, you know, I think it's just gone sort of mainstream, and I'm still not a fan. I mean, I wear flip-flops and socks at home, but it's at home because also I'm half Asian, so I think it's just in the blood. I went to my mother's house in the Philippines, a quick aside, and I accidentally walked in the house with my outside flip-flops, and boy, did I get a talking to.
Okay.
There are inside flip-flops and there are outside flip-flops, and never the twain shall meet.
That's also a very
That's true,
Latino
actually.
thing. I'm going to not lie. Oh, my God. I remember growing up because, you know, my family, I grew up in this, you do not wear sandals unless you're at the beach type thing.
Right.
You know, that's it. Around the house, you know, you have your house shoes and whatnot, but, And I remember we would go to other parts over the tracks, over the rail tracks. No, I'm just kidding. Of the
The
city.
other side.
And I remember families that would have 40 pairs of chanclas, as they're called down there, chanclas, lined up outside the door of their house. And I just remember thinking, the plebeians, you guys. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm such a bitch. I'm totally lying, actually. But I had never seen that type of thing. It's very Latin, very Mexicano to have an assortment of chanclas. Sometimes with flowers on them so you can wear them to the mall.
Oh, I love that.
That's cute.
That's my jam.
And they're always perfect pedicures and manicures. You know, let's see now. So, you know, my big LA girls with the hoops and that. See, when I was, that
Banjo
Pachuca look, the Chola look, I did not like when I was younger. And then
Painful-looking
as the
eyebrows.
90s moved to, I love it now. I love it. I love the beats. Remember Cypress Hill?
Well, a lot of drag queens are going all in on the Banji look, you know, the Cholo look. That a lot of Latin American queens they love that, like especially LA queens.
Especially, it would make sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I think Cali and Tex, there's so much of that. But let's talk a little bit about art. Let's talk a little bit about art, please, because that's why you're here, man. And one of the things we were talking about was, of course, the Tulip Art shout out to the people, and they're actually setting up new base in Hungary of the Tulip Art contest. You were the last winner. Or the penultimate last winner. The first winner of the first international contest last year. And you're shortlisted for another thing right now in London. I have a question.
Yes.
When you're, because you were also not too long ago in Italy, you're just always going around, and when you're having to, not necessarily commission, but get these works out, is it gut-wrenchingly nervous? Is it a nervous thing for you?
I would say not any longer. I've been a professional artist full time now for just under 2 years.
Wow.
And
Only.
yeah,
Incredible.
yeah. When I sat in Mrs. Tulip and they called all the other awards, I was with one of my best girlfriends here, and I just was kind of like, oh, okay. Like by the time they got to the last award, I was like, okay, that's it. And then the shock on my face, I still see it, and I like in the pictures, because I had already resigned to just being a finalist at that point. And so when I was a finalist at other contests, that same anxiety, that same, it's so interesting because you get that anxiety, that want to win, but at the same time, there's all this, negative speak in your brain, like you're not going to win, but you want to win.
How do you deal with that negative speak, in a general sense, as an artist?
You know what? I will say that I had a kind of a long bout of it this winter, right before Christmas into the new year, and I kind of just have to sit through it.
Okay.
But also I need to acknowledge it, and I need to acknowledge it out loud, and I need to acknowledge it with my husband, with close friends, with other artists, saying, I'm having a downtime in my head. And I think acknowledging it gives it less power. But there's like an ancient saying about naming something gives you power over it. But the urge is to hold it in. It's imposter syndrome. That's what I'm thinking of. Because there's so much. It's just to hold it in and just sort of let it live in you. But when because it's also so insidious, it doesn't hit you all at once. It sort of just creeps in, and then when you're like, oh, it's there. There's also this weird comfort in it for a little bit, and so you have to sit in that. But then it just gets too uncomfortable, and you have to talk about it.
Yeah, there's almost like a reveling in the quagmire of the feeling, like pobre de me. And I remember feeling this as a young lad at 7, and I would process this and I would go, oh my God, it just turned into therapy. It's a breakthrough. I remember thinking, nobody loves me, so I'm just going to leave and they won't even realize I'm gone. And I would imagine myself, and I'm talking, I was 6 years old, 7 years old. And I remember the stick, with a little knapsack that's
runaway,
red hanging around.
yeah. The
That
runaway
was in my
stick.
head. Of course, it was the mid to late 80s at the time. So that was still a thing, I guess.
I think that was all of
Hobo,
us.
right? Hobo shit.
Yeah.
Hobo chic.
Well, the
now
little
Balenciaga
rascals
does it.
into
It's
Yeah.
great.
Warner Brothers cartoons, they all had that
Yeah.
iconic.
I used
Once
to
you've
always
seen one.
fantasize about that. Like,
Totally.
you know what? Screw you. With my sheet.
I'm out of here, right?
But then I also watched a lot of after-school specials, whereas if you end up on Times Square, you can be picked up and pushed into sex work. So then I thought, okay, I'll stay home.
Yeah.
I'll stay home.
Those after-school specials scared the crap out of me.
They were good.
They were good, but I don't think 8 and 6-year-olds need to see that shit. And I would come home and
it's
put it on, and
I remember watching Degrassi Junior High,
Yeah, and then high.
right?
now look at
That taught me
Champagne.
all
And now
of
look
my
at
life
Champagne
lessons.
Poppy.
100%.
Okay, keeping it in Barcelona, but not for the moment because he's not coming here yet. But do we think Champagne Poppy is still hot or not?
Wait, who was Champagne Poppy? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. I'm really bad at pop culture. I'll just say that.
Was he Degrassi High?
Yeah, well, Champagne Pop. Okay, why am I calling him Champagne
That
Pop?
wasn't Drake, right?
It's Drake.
Oh,
yeah.
Drake.
You
Do
know
you
what?
still
I
think
didn't
he's
even.
hot? Do you still think he's hot?
I never thought he was hot,
What?
and I still don't. I'm sorry. I said what I said.
Absolutely.
I didn't even know he was in Degrassi High until I rewatched it as a full-on
Was he?
adult.
Oh, right. Of course, he's Canadian. I
Yeah,
always forget that. I
He's
always
the
forget he's
wheelchair
Canadian.
boy.
Is he? Oh, I have to rewatch this.
Yeah, I know. In my 30s, like my late 30s, I'm like, let me watch Degrassi High again to see if I still feel the same way. I still feel the same way. It's the best.
No, wait a minute. Now we're dating ourselves, but they also had that here. They Salvado por la Campana, Saved by the Bell.
Oh,
was
yeah,
a
yeah.
show
Really?
Here. Yes.
I love
Yes,
Saved by the Bell.
it ran here as well. But did anybody watch that one?
I love
Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God! When Elizabeth Berkley made Showgirls,
Iconic.
honestly,
It's-
honestly, Gina Gershon is even more iconic.
Well, Gina Gershon gets always the side character, the lead supporting actress, and she
And
should
Bound
be
as well.
Yeah.
She was
Yeah.
so damn good in Bound. Oh my God!
Yeah.
Remember that
That's
lesbian
true.
thriller with
With the
Jennifer
Tilly
Tilly.
sister.
Oh, I don't know this one.
oh.
Okay, I'll have to see that
Child, I use that with my business when I was talking about Bound. Let me tell you about it, sweetie. Okay, so let's get back to the artwork then. So you deal with that. You also mentioned it. You mentioned imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with it, and you are, I didn't realize this. De verdad. I thought you were a longer established. You were well established, but I thought you were a longer established artist. When we were looking at the stuff this week,
Yeah,
Kelly
from the
said,
work
"How
I
the
saw."
hell the intricacy of your mind to do what you, because on your website it says art stuff. I make art stuff from other stuff.
It's a it's just a cute version of found object art and Dadaism started in the 1950s. Michel Duchamp, into why do I always forget her name? Like when it's right on top of my mind. She was a Russian-born American artist. Did huge room sculptures, found art objects.
Marina.
It'll come to me.
Okay. But so Dadaism, really, that was part of it.
Yeah, so Dadaism, when it turned into visual art, Dadaism was mostly a pushing back against conventional art that really continued up until the mid 20th century, right? The Cubist movement, the Dadaist movement, all of those were saying, that postmodernism, because we're not going back to, what the art world was, which is what we see in museums today. And now we see postmodern art museums today. I like to think of mine as sort of, I guess, like a postmodern art. I think it draws from, there is for me, because I use found objects in my work, rather, right now it's a lot of toothpicks. And I think a lot of it has to do with mental illness, because everyone's like, who sits there and glues this many toothpicks together? Probably not the most sane people, meaning me.
Okay, fair enough. Well, fair
There are
enough.
books on that, actually.
There's probably a lot of OCD that goes into it.
Yeah, but then you've converted that, if you want to say that, into an art form that wins.
Totally.
Okay, so,
Totally.
like, to quote Patsy Stone, what's the difference of a painter who paints like a child and a child's painting?
Right.
Okay,
Oh, Louise Nevelson. Louise Nevelson. If you ever,
Louise Nevelson.
yeah,
Thank you.
she's-
There it is, folks. We got it for you.
I need more coffee, but eventually gets there.
Okay.
If you ever get a chance to go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, she has this entire room of found objects and just painted monochromatically black, and it's like these boxes that she's just put different stuff in. But it's so, I remember seeing it when I was young, and I was just so moved by it. I don't know what it was, but maybe the bigness, the presence, the monochromatic, there was just there was just an essence about it that was so compelling.
Do you remember the name of the piece?
I don't, but it's definitely it should still be in the Museum of Modern Art. I haven't been in New York in a little while now, so.
And the artist's name again? What was that?
Louise Nevelson.
Okay.
Nicholson.
In a roundabout way to rook it back to some of the stuff that you're doing, do you feel like when you look at some of the work like Frances Tapies is a very big thing here with just certain object art. Is there a new modality or mode that you're going to be moving into out of curiosity in the future?
So I am working on others. There is another piece that I'm working on that's not based on toothpicks. Before I moved to Barcelona, I had been working with a lot of recycling paper catalogs and I take the pages and I turn them into almost like string. So I weave them together into different patterns. So I'm doing something with that now, and also as the base used matchboxes as to wrap them around. So I'm going to do a large collage of these woven paper.
How long does that take?
It's as long as it's long too.
Because, like, for example, one of the pieces, and we'll throw some of those out as well over the week and the month with this podcast, is the intricacy must take months. How long does it take to make one of those pieces with the colored toothpicks?
So the painted ones. So I had to actually recreate an unpainted one because the original, after coming back from Italy, broke apart, and I couldn't. It broke apart into too many pieces that it was actually faster to rebuild it than it was to put it back together, and that was the piece that had to go to London. So, and I think I had just over 2 weeks, and I worked some days until 3 a.m. just because
the hustle.
It's exactly,
and the passion for it.
Exactly.
Right? Like this is your heart.
Amen. Exactly.
the passion, which turns into anxiety.
Yeah, but it's like secretly with the anxiety, like it reminds me of a term garment in college.
Right.
You were told you had a whole semester to do it, but this is me. The last 2 weeks, 4 in the morning, tons of coffee, scared, but like that. I got it, like that excitement and fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when did you decide? Like, how did you decide that you were going to be a full-time working artist? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
So I came to Barcelona during the pandemic, and because my husband and I were separated, he's a Spanish resident. I'm still a citizen of the U.S. even though I have residency here, but they were kicking out all foreign nationals out of the U.S. So after I was able to keep my job because I was working remotely. I was actually working in the data analytics department for my company at the time. So working remotely was fine while I was here. But I as an artist, I think you just it's a compulsion. It's a drive. It's a need. There's a need to create. I would even put it like on the Maslow hierarchy, when you're an artist, because when I don't have access to it, like I'm a completely different person. I'm not, there's a depression that sets in, that mood changes. Yeah, you have to create. I have to build. I have to paint. I have to, rearrange flowers, rearrange the furniture in my house. I just have to
design consistently.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a need for me. And I know that other artists feel this as well. And so I worked through while lockdown was slowly being removed here remotely, but then my husband's career was really going well, and he said he kept pushing me to go full time, and I've had other people and what made me nervous was when you're a man and you grow up in the United States, it is your job to make money. And so there is still this part of the imposter syndrome that I do not have my own money, even though we share our lives, including our accounts, but that I'm not pulling in a regular paycheck is so there's
It's a pressure we put on.
yeah, and it's so ingrained in this, in what it means to be a man, what it means to be a provider for your spouse, of whatever gender. So it took a while for me to let go of this regular paycheck job. Unfortunately, the company had too many toxicities, and I just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And my husband has been hugely supportive the whole way. He continues to be hugely supportive. And honestly, I could not do this without him. I also don't think I could do this. I don't think I could do it in the way that I'm doing it in the United States.
Why not?
Yeah.
Well, it's very expensive. I mean, I love sitting in a room full of New Yorkers. You went to FIT. You were definitely a New Yorker. You grew up in New York. We know how expensive New York City is. We know that, there were days in New York City where I got up at 5 and I didn't get home till 11. And it was, it was going to the gym before work and working and then meeting friends or doing meetings. And then okay, well, I live all the way uptown, but I'm all the way downtown. I'm not going to eat at 10 o'clock. So I got to eat downtown. By the time I get home, nobody wants to do art. You have to go to bed.
You're
because
tired.
you
You're
have to get up
mentally
at 6.
drained.
And do it
Exactly.
again.
Exactly.
It is, wow.
Yeah.
There's so much negotiation. I now when I go back to New York City, the New Yorker comes out of me in about a half a day to a day, but also it's now so much more taxing on me. I'm exhausted by 3 p.m. just because just trying to get from across town is so mentally taxing in New York.
Yeah.
Negotiating the subway, negotiating the traffic, negotiating all the people.
So do you feel more peace here then?
Yeah.
100%.
You can,
Okay.
as you said, you can walk around and see 3 concerts here.
Yeah.
And
when I walk around, and this started when I lived, the moment I left the States, actually. But here, I don't walk around like this. In New York, I'm like, he's in my space. Someone asked for direction. Or you're on the train. It's like mentally, I am just drained, nervous.
In New York, in the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before 9 a.m., before I hit the office, I'm just like, someone says, "How was your weekend?" Leave me alone. Because some guy on a train just flashed me and no one said anything because we're too used to it, But as I'm a creative person also, and we talked about this, I need to have my time in silence alone, and I have to do something, and I become depressed if I don't do something, with my hands. And here I feel like I have the mental space to do it. And the other day I took a walk to Montjuic just to look at the cactus garden because they have amazing shapes in nature. So I was looking at the shapes. Normally I take my sketch pad, and I forgot it this time, but I ended up taking photos of everything. So it's like this sort of
the botanical garden over there?
the cacti garden
cacti
behind
garden.
the Martinez bar.
Because they have a beautiful
Restaurant.
botanical garden over there as well.
Well, there's the hotel, and then there's like this nice little maze. But I go to see the cacti once a week. I have to go. I have to go and look at the cactus, and then I have to look at the sea. I need to see water. So if I don't have that at least 3 times a week, I'm no good.
No, we've got the water in New York. Do we have the cacti? Maybe in that where they make Ugly Coyote.
I think you have to go to the Bronx Botanical Garden in one of the greenhouses.
Yeah,
Cierto.
but to get there, I'm already exhausted. Just even talking about it, I can't do it.
My brother lives in the Bronx, and it still takes 20 minutes by car from him to get there.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Really?
Yeah.
Madonna.
Because it just can't get the Bronx was unfortunately designed by a very racist man, Robert Moses, and he cut off access.
Is the causeway still named after him?
It unfortunately is. There's a lot of
I grew up in the
They're gonna
Bronx, in the
change
South
that.
Bronx.
It's there's a terrible history.
It's interesting how a Barcelona brunch podcast turns into plus New York when you get 3 New Yorkers.
The
up
New
there,
York
like,
escapees.
well, that's one of the beauties of being here is like you can escape and feel some semblance of that as well.
feel
I
more
do feel like
human.
it's a little bit of a bar. It's more like Brooklyn or the Queens than the whole city, obviously. But you do feel that as well. I didn't even know. Just such one of our friends is here. I didn't even seen her. So when, for example, with the stuff that I mentioned that you just talked about with the new material that you're going to be dealing with, when is that perhaps going to be in fruition?
It's an ongoing process. I have in mind a fairly large scale piece for it. So the answer is I don't know.
And what about London? Do you know anything about London yet?
Not yet. I was longlisted for the Aesthetic Art Prize, which means that they'll be showing my works on video screens there in February. There's another prize that one I'm shortlisted for. I won't know until next month about that one. It's I'm just trying to build a brand and get my name out there as much as possible and apply to these prizes. And this year it's going to be hopefully getting a residency somewhere. Exactly. A residency. I'm looking for the right opportunity to do a show for myself somewhere. Hopefully here even would be great. I consider this my home base now, of course.
We can actually make that happen. There's a lot of people that we know have been here from that, so we need to talk.
Okay, let's talk.
Seriously.
Get my Long Island out.
Oh my God. Where in Long Island were you?
I don't know.
No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
It's all a blur. Mostly North Shore, Huntington, Woodbury, Northport.
Really? Okay, so more central then. Central going north. Okay, because my family was at the very end. Near Montauk.
Oh, wow, okay.
Past Riverhead. I said a lot at the end. All right, folks. Well, this has been our launch version of the Brunch and BCN podcast with Lady Tawanda Vaughns. And hi, Lucas Avram. Thank you, Sir Aaron Rockman, for being here with us.
Thank you very much.
We're going to be throwing this out and a lot of different stuff. We also want to make one more quick shout out. Besides the Velvet Room, we did not talk about Astor Club.
Oh, Casa Astor. Casa Astor. And
Which night was
Big
that
Bang.
that you loved?
Oh my gosh. It was Sunday. They had a jam session, blues. And
Can I go out with you guys?
Hell to the yeah, that's the idea.
It was amazing. Some swing, but more like hardcore blues, but people got up to dance, and I know we talk a lot about venues closing here, but let's not forget about the ones who are still here and really need the support. Yeah. There's a reason why these places are closing. So,
Think
in
global,
New York,
act
I would
local.
say, come out, go into the boroughs. If I was in New York, okay, well, come into Sands, go into the Raval. I know people talk about Raval in a certain way, but there's some great entertainment going on there. And I love my musicians. I'm a huge supporter of artists anyway.
So that's what
especially
we're
my
going to bring on the musician
musicians.
next time. Next month, we're going to have some musicians up in here.
Yes.
That's what we definitely want. Folks, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be serving up the gift of gab in the BCN and Brunch and BCN podcast. And you know what? We're going to have somebody come make us brunch here one day.
Oh, my God.
Okay. And we'll be doing this every month until it becomes a bi-weekly or weekly podcast. But folks, we're also always going to be repping up people and artists here in the city. And so we're going to leave you with an outro by the queen of flamenco fusion rock and roll. This is Lady Tory Sparks, BCN original, also hailing from our beautiful country of the United States of America. Remember, keep things fun and real as possible. Keep your distance. There's COVID everywhere.
COVID? What is
We'll
that?
see. Oh, God. This is Bitter Seeds with Tory Sparks. You are loved, and we'll see you on the next podcast on the Brunch of BCN. Bye, babies.
the work to do, sometimes it overwhelms the vine. Keep watering the bitter seed, the should to grow in time. I remember well the day the light went from your eyes. I beat that bloody horse to death, cause something broke inside. I guess we all go a little crazy sometimes. Oh, I guess we all go a little crazy sometimes. A shot of love without drawing blood is assisted suicide. A word, a fist, a careless kiss, 1,000 ways to die. I need to be more to you than a method to survive. There's life support and tubes and cords, there's so much more to this life. We all go a little crazy sometimes.